Michael, it's great to meet you.
Hello,
Although,
Alex.
hello. I can't see you very well there, but I can hear you.
Why can't you see me? What's wrong?
No. There you are. There you go. I guess first question really is, can you believe that Total Recall is 30 years old? And
No, that's you know things. The river flows past; it never stops. And it's amazing how quickly things go by. You
yeah.
know,
Why do you think it's had such a kind of long and illustrious legacy?
because it was well made.
Yeah.
I'm,
It's just full
I'm,
stop.
I'm, I'm not gonna get no. I'm not gonna give you a boilerplate here and go, yeah, man. No, I basically have told everybody I don't have a great memory, so I don't lie. Because I don't. But no, because it's well made. It's very well
Yeah.
made. If you saw the second installment that was made a few years back, you
Mm.
really see the difference. No matter how many bells and whistles, flashes and bangs you put in something, that's not going to sell something. Here, hold on a second, sister.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you. I was swinging a sword around in the last interview because one of the fellows had a katana. He had a he
Wow.
had a he had a remake of the katana from Highlander 2, and I actually have one of the old swords
Oh, wow.
from the movie. I picked it up and I clipped myself in the bloody forehead with it.
Oh, yeah, some battle scars there.
But no, I think it's a very well crafted, and at the helm of one a Paul Verhoeven film is very very well told. It's a story it's well told.
Mm.
Story is
How,
everything.
how did you get involved with it initially?
How would I get involved? It's where are you from?
Southeast London. So there's a bit
Southeast
of a
London, yeah.
bit of a drawl there. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry for it. I'm originally from Toronto, not Toronto, Toronto, but I'm Canadian. I got involved because my audition for it. I think people had seen me in V,
Mm.
and Paul auditioned me for it and stuff like that, and it worked out pretty good. It did.
Did you met Paul Verhoeven before, or what was he
No,
like to work with on that?
I was very well. Those are very, very fucking dense questions you're asking me.
Sorry.
Like, what did you have for lunch the last month? No, I had not met Paul before. I was very, very aware of his film, so that like Spatters and stuff like that. I knew something about him. There's my Canadian accent about, and I knew something about him, and I auditioned. I'm a Dickian. I'm Philip K. Dick. I love his stuff.
Mm.
I come from a lot of sci-fi and a lot of literature as a child. It was one of the escapes we had. I'm from a working class family, and books is how we escaped.
Mm.
My dad actually took a third part-time job at a place called Charters Press, where part of the deal was, part of the payment was at night they would give him the runoffs when they're test printing something. So, and in those days, back in the 50s and 60s, um, only books in Canada that were sold in Canada had to be printed in Canada. And
Mm.
Charters had some of the contracts for things like Penguin and some of the other American books, the English books. So he would come home with everything from Lady Chatterley's Lover to DC Comics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we were allowed to read anything that was in my mom and dad's bed in the bedroom. The ones on the headboard hadn't been read yet, and the ones that were on the floor they'd been read. And so I read everything. I read Slan, Vought's Slan 1, 2, and 3. I remember reading Lady Chatterley's Lover. I remember reading um, Dostoevsky. I remember. I mean, in sci-fi, my grandfather, my dad's father, Findlay, Jock Ironside, was part of the original 100 that were part of the Sci-Fi Club, the Sci-Fi magazine, before it was published. It had everything. It had Frank Herbert involved in those days. So the Beast himself, Alistair, was a member of that group, and and it was a private club that they sent their writing around to. And my grandfather had an electrical engineer's degree. He's from Aberdeenshire in Scotland.
Mm.
He was very obstinate, very well read and very well educated. Who gave it all up when his wife died when my dad was 7. He just basically sat down and uncorked a bottle of Old Mull and smoked cigarettes and read books for the rest of his life. Huge influence on me, my grandfather.
Mm.
But and my dad, on the other hand, I only got a grade 3 education, but was so well read. It was amazing. My dad could talk, like I said, everything from Velishkovsky down to Terry and the Pirates. My dad and my grandfather, and so sci-fi was my grandfather's. I read Dune, for example, Frank Herbert's script for Dune. I read it out of his shoebox. It had been sent to my a draft of the book, the first book was sent to my grandfather, and it said, "Jock, have a look through this, see if you can find any bugaboos."
Wow.
Frank, and so my brother still got it actually, and not some of the stuff with the framing and stuff like that was a little bit different in that draft, but they would send stuff to my grandfather because of his electrical engineering background and some of his other stuff, his mechanical engineering. He had a couple of degrees and things, and he would go through it and check the science on it and stuff like that. Yeah. So, I mean, reading. Do you know the Slan books? Lots books.
No,
1, 2, and 3.
No.
It's about. I won't go. It's almost the base for Scanners in a funny way.
Oh, okay. Wow.
David probably doesn't know who Slan is and stuff, but Slans were the genetics of children and before they were born were played with. And humans were born with antennae like hair, and they could read each other's minds and communicate. And they were heralded when they're first born, and then they become, because they're superior to the run-of-the-mill people, they got vilified and were hunted down and slaughtered. And it's about this one character through the 3 books who's trying to get to the head of the World Federation to plead his case for the Slans. And when he gets there, he finds out that the head of the World Organization, if you haven't read the books, I'm giving it away, is actually he's actually a Slan who had cut off his antennae.
Oh, okay.
And so that stuff I read when I was 9.
Yeah.
And 10 and 11.
Yeah.
Reading Dostoevsky and stuff like that when I was 10.
So were you surprised how the script for Total Recall had changed from the original book?
Well, we can get it wholesale. Not really. That story. It's kind of a political question. We can get it for you wholesale. Look at. I was always attracted to Dick because of his paranoia, his schizophrenia, some of his drug taking. Philip K. Dick, if you're not versed in his stuff, read it. Talk about his use of cell phones and stuff and communicators long before they ever existed. I was a big fan of his, and what Paul did with Paul and the writers and that did with that script is they just took that and expanded it. And used it, I think, as a bit of a. I feel bad. I don't want to talk about what Paul was doing. What attracted me to the story was the breadth of the story and how I saw it as a political story. I saw it as a comment on politics. I saw it as a comment on, that we're all being sold pipe dreams. That's how you get control and money. Through these devices, through this, life isn't as you really see it. There's real life, and then there's the life that they promise to us, like carrots in front of us.
It's definitely, I think, one of the greatest kind of tricks it pulls is that at the beginning you think your character and Schwarzenegger's Quaid, they seem like they're 2 different people. But by the end, they're pretty much the same person. I mean, they both work for Cohagen. They're both in it as, if you believe that it's all real, that they're both the same. So, it's an interesting
dealing with duality, dealing with how the corporate presence in the world runs us, things like that.
Yeah.
But talking about what the story's about, I think the audience is, that's the great thing about an audience is like, I think it was Duchamp that said you have 3 equal parts. There's the material, there's the creation, like the artist and the material, there's the creation, then there's the audience, and they're all equal. If the audience and the material goes in a certain direction, the artist and the original material, they're left out on an island by themselves. Duchamp, and Duchamp was a very smart fellow. He did everything from classical and neoclassical painting all the way through nudes, extending a staircase to found objects in art, and he finally ended up playing chess at the end of his life because he thought there was enough variable. True artist, but he believed that they're equal parts, and I agree with that. I think if an audience picks up a piece of material and you've done your best to tell a story, and they find a different vehicle there, they find a different platform to allow them. The whole idea is to, I think, invigorate and hopefully, whether it's spiritual or physical, educate people in some way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not in it for the stand in line, shake hands, and get awards. And I've never have been.
No.
I've always thought that someday they're going to find out who I am and send me home. I really did believe that. It was for the longest time. But even though I've trained very hard, I ran away and joined the circus when I was very young, and that's what I see as. Paul's an incredible storyteller.
Yeah, I think definitely, like you say, Verhoeven definitely can make a film that can work on this level of entertainment, but it can also work on these massive other levels. Something like RoboCop or Starship Troopers, which you're also in, like those films have got so much going on, but you can just see them as just pure visual blockbuster entertainment if you want,
Or they can just be a piece of shit. Look at being a director, and I don't give a fuck whether they believe me or not, or like the metaphor. It's like being an incredible chef, a chef that cooks food. The whole idea is to give somebody nutrients, stuff like that, and to have an effect on them and stuff like that. But it all depends on how it looks, how it tastes, how you present it, how it's the diatribe around being served up to you and stuff. A lot of things that look shiny and good and stuff like that just don't taste right. It takes a real artist to be able to go from the raw material to the presentation to actually having something of value that you want to finish everything that's on your plate and you want more.
Yeah.
The idea of, I think, of a good film is you leave the theater wanting more. And there's, like I've said it over and over and over again. I've worked with over 300 different directors. There's only like 5 that are classed as true artist directors that they're in charge of every aspect of what they're doing. And they're aware enough. They're true artists. And Paul's one of them. Paul's very much in charge. I remember Paul giving a speech at on Total Recall when we did the arrival. It's kind of a funny one, actually. My oldest daughter was 12 at the time. And we're down at Chirabuchi Studios in Mexico at that time. We did the whole film there and took over the whole studio, 6 barns and stuff. And we did the Mars arrival sequence where we're coming through and with the fat lady, the head, and all that stuff. And we did, and it was set up as a Steadicam shot where we come off the elevator, we come off the arrival vehicle, we come through immigration and all that stuff. We go right up, and then I stop and I turn around and go Quaid, It's all one shot. And we were doing that. We're going through, and we did it about 4 times, I think, maybe 3, 4. And Paul said, "I want to talk to everybody." And this is not meant to embarrass Paul. This is a good example. And he said, and it was about a month, I think, into the production at that time. It was 5, 6 month shoot. And he said, "I want everyone." He called in all the crew and the cast was there. He called everyone in. He said, look. And this blue sweater on that he had tied around. I remember he was pulling on the arm, tied around his waist. He said, "This is a very difficult shoot. It's a very, it's necessary that everyone do the job, do what you're hired for. We're all in this together. And if there's one person, you let everyone else down." And he started talking, and he worked himself into this huge, visceral, you're letting people down if you don't do what you can do. You were hired to do a specific job. If you can't fucking do your job, let me know and you can go home. No problems. I pay you off, you go home. We get somebody who's willing to do it. Because if you can't fucking do your job, what are you doing here? Blah. And I'm kind of blending into the scenery. I'm just sort of standing. Everyone's kind of shuffling because he was very passionate. He's like, and he's not a madman. He's being very passionate. And I was thinking, what the fuck's going on here? And then all of a sudden, and one of those breaths where he's doing this and everything like that, and everyone's like, he had about 100 crew and cast and extras every stand.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, in one of his breaths, when it's all quiet, you heard somebody go, stifle a laugh. And I went, who the fuck is stupid? And he stopped and he looked around and he looked to the back of behind him off the set. It was my daughter, 12 years old, sitting in his chair.
Wow.
And he turned and everyone looked at me and he turned and started heading for it. He said, "You think this is funny? You think this is a fucking joke? You think this is crazy time here? You think?" And he's walking towards her, and I thought, here goes my career. Because I started after him. I started right behind him because I headed off after him. I got to stop him before he does anything. You know, I'm about to fucking nail the director if he touches my fucking daughter. And he's saying stuff like, "You think this is funny? You think this is a joke? You think this is?" And just as he was about to get to his chair that she's sitting in, very casual, she says, "You got your shot, didn't you?"
Wow.
And he stopped like a train. And literally quite calmly went, yeah, I got my shot. No, you're right. He said, "Have you read the script?" And she goes, "No." He says, "Get off my set and don't come back until you've read the script."
Wow.
And she says, "That's fair. That's fair." She got up out of his chair and walked off. And then he turned around and I'm right behind him. And he turned around and he looked at me and went, and smiled. And I realized it had been a performance.
Wow. Yeah.
Everything he was doing was to get the dramatics of in my opinion, it was a total performance.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah. He said, and he looked at me and he smiled and he leaned over to everybody and said, "You've all been told." She said, "So we're going into coverage on this thing. Print those last two takes." And he just smiled at me. The next morning, we were staying at the Nico Hotel in Mexico City. This huge modern hotel, about 30 or 40 clicks from the studio. And we'd been pretty well taken over. We were the thing at that time. We had crew and cast and all these. You know, Arnold had the top floor in the place with somebody who's a great guy. Arnold's like a very good acquaintance of mine. And I come down in the morning because it was one of those things where I actually had a morning to sleep in. Very rarely I slept in. You know, I was on set most of the time and constant running and chasing scenes and stuff. Yeah. And I got up and I was able to sleep in. And my daughter was in this she had it's like a 3-room suite. She had a bedroom off the suite in the next room. And I knocked on the door, the side door, and I opened up the door, and her bed was empty. And I went, "Adrian, where are you?" Tooch, her nickname was Tooch. "Tooch, where are you?" She's not there. So I thought she'd gone down. So I go down to the lobby of the hotel. I'm looking for her. She's not in the restaurant. She's not anywhere. And I go to the front security guys, and they said, "Have you seen Adrian?" She said, "Oh, yeah, she went in on the first car." I went, "What?" This is like 8 o'clock. She went in at 5:30 in the morning. I went,
"Wow."
"She's gone to work. She's gone to yeah." She went in with the first crew. And I went, so I quickly got dressed and everything like that. And I rush off to the studio. I get a car, get back down to the studio. And I walk in and there's her and Paul sitting. He had a chair for her beside him. And they were going through the script and she was asking him questions. And he was teaching her. He was sharing stuff with her. Not what he'd be. He wouldn't share fucking shit with me, but he's teaching her.
Wow.
And he looked at me as I walked up. And I remember Tooch said, "Hi, Dad." And I said, "So you read the script?" She goes, "Yeah, I read yours last night." And I went, "Uh-huh." And Paul looked at me and smiled and he said, "Aren't you in? You're not in until noon." and I went, yeah. He says, "Very smart daughter you have here." He said, she's really going to be something. He said, "Well, if you're here, you might as well go into makeup." He says, "Maybe I'll catch you on something." And go on, we're working. Go. And he dismissed me. He's sitting there.
Wow.
He had pulled a chair up my daughter. And that's one of my favorite memories from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
I have thousands of memories, but one of those is, and that's Paul Verhoeven. That's Paul being absolutely in charge. He's oh God, he's just such a deft storyteller. You know, nothing happens without him, without his approval.
Yeah.
You know, and and that's what storytelling is. Look at, I know I'm using up a lot of your time and stuff like that.
No, it's fine. No.
Look at since the beginning of time, the sun goes down, it gets dark, and filmmaking is tribal. Storytelling is tribal. You know, the sun goes down, somebody lights a fire, and everyone sits around the fire before they go to sleep, and the elders get up and tell stories.
Mm.
And they're used to be educational. They're told to the ring of people, the young ones and the people, and their legends or their whatever, the cave painting legends or whatever. But the story is necessary because it's a teaching tool. It passes
Yeah.
morals, ethics, and education down. And that's why theaters, I think, are so important. Movies and stuff. You know, whether it's live theater or if it's movie theaters, because when the lights go down and the fire comes up, we all sit there and wait to be told the story. You know, we're partially education, partially, whether it's visceral or whatever. And bad storytelling, I don't care how many times you go to the theater, somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, you can tell. The audience starts to squirm. You know, no matter how much flash and bang and color and special effects, if you don't have story.
Yeah.
You know? I remember, I was talking about it earlier and I've forgotten all about it. Do you remember the film Wait Until Dark?
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh, you should. It's like Audrey Hepburn. She plays a blind woman in Greenwich Village who has come across something that was given to her that was necessary for some very bad people that wanted it. And it's an object with either a lot of drugs or a lot of money or something in it. And she's blind. And how they try to get it off her. And how the police come and are they really the police? And how she's and eventually the bad guy is actually Alan Arkin, very early in his career. Alan Arkin plays the bad guy. And he's very, very fucking convincing in this role. And he gets in there, and to be on the same ground as him, but to take away his ability, she takes all the lights, breaks all the light bulbs in her apartment. In this ground floor apartment in Greenwich. And he's in there in the dark and everything like that. And she's deaf. She's now got the upper hand because she's stone blind. And there's one point in the theater, everyone's rooting for her, and then all of a sudden you hear the milk bottle shake in the fridge. And all of a sudden he's been hit and he's had laundry detergent thrown on him and everything like that. All of a sudden he's like this squatting fucking pariah animal on the floor, and the fridge door opens and it swings open and the fridge light comes on and it lights up the set. And I remember squirming. Everyone I saw it more than once because I remember being amazed. Where does the audience? Where are the control points of that story? But everyone's squirming in their seats, going, "Oh, Jesus!" Because of the empathy they have for the lead character, you know.
Yeah.
And we're in the dark, being told a story by an elder.
Yeah.
Looking at the film, you know, and it's a commonality of that.
Yeah. Yeah. You talking about kind of great directors, and you mentioned Cronenberg before, because he worked on a version of Total Recall for years.
Yeah, I heard that. I've been asked, what do I think would be the difference?
Yeah, I just kind of, having worked with him, I wondered if you could kind of get in the mindset of what he would have done with it.
What, I had worked with him, or you've worked?
Yeah, you worked with him.
Well, I worked with David very early on in my career, you know, and in the late 60s, late 70s, 78, 79, I think. It took a while to get scanners out. We did reshoots on it. I was only hired for a very small part in that film, and it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. David's a master storyteller. The difference between, telling this is like I said, putting my dick on an anvil and giving somebody a hammer. You know, it's like, I wouldn't even presume to know what goes on in David or goes on in Paul's lines and stuff. But there's storytelling from my experience and stuff. David is very interior. David is attracted to the paranoid, what goes on in somebody, how they see the world, how they operate in that world and stuff like that. It's very interior, you know. Most of his storytelling and stuff is from, you know, I actually think he does better when he does other people's material. I find that much more compelling. That's just my personal taste and stuff. But Paul doesn't. Paul's more of a social, political, everything across the board. He doesn't spend a lot of time inside the character's head, looking through the character's eyes. You know, David tries to give you an insight into the emotional turmoil or the complexities of emotional mental disease, maybe. You know, a lot of his stuff deal with that paranoia, that introspective kind of thing. Paul's very much more the landscape.
Yeah.
Talks about
it.
You know,
Yeah.
And again, that's on a very, very shallow comparison, those two. But I think we
Yeah.
would have spent more time on David. You know, look at Dick, Philip K. Dick, suffered from, as they say, he suffered from, schizophrenia, massive depressions, chemical use, bipolar, lost his twin sister when he was younger, felt alone most of his life and stuff like that. Died of a massive heart attack or brain hemorrhage or whatever. That side of Dick's material would have attracted, I think, what David looks at.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what Mr.
Yeah.
Verhoeven would look at is how that operates in society, how that interacts in society.
Yeah.
That's my 10 cents on it.
That's great. No,
that's the 5-minute version.
Yeah. I've been asked to wrap up.
What would absolutely been interesting to see David take on that material.
Yeah. Yeah.
Paul has a way of literally seeing an overview.
Yeah.
To me, he's almost like a Ridley Scott in a lot of ways. He takes that overview of something. They're completely different storytellers, but there's that. I better stop.
Yeah. I've been asked to wrap up, but I guess because you're talking about science fiction books and your love and passion of them, is there a book, a sci-fi book that you'd love to be involved with bringing to the screen, or that hasn't been
all my life?
All
my life, I wanted to be Gurney Halleck.
Oh, okay.
From Dune. And,
wow. Okay. Yeah.
Like having read Frank Herbert's Dune from a shoebox when I was 11 years old and stuff like that, and I had a shot at it when they were doing it in Mexico and when Rafael de Laurentis was doing it, when she was producing it. And originally we had Max von Sydow, we had Jane Fonda playing Jessica.
Oh, wow.
I was offered the part of Gurney Halleck, and I said, that's a fucking movie.
Yeah.
And I would love to do it. And I was all pumped up for it very early it was early in the 80s, 85, 84, 85, right around or just before Total Recall. And then what happened is Jane Fonda got ill. Marlon Brando was going to play that Baron Harkonnen.
Oh, God. Wow.
Yeah.
That would have been insane.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Jane pulled out because of some medical reason. She needed a delay for a couple of months or something. There's more to that. I found out later on and stuff. Because of that, Brando pulled out. He thought it was, he either knew something was up or he got into whatever Brando got into in those days. And everything started to fall apart. And the film was postponed. And I got offered Extreme Prejudice with Walter Hill and Nick Nolte, Powers Boothe, Maria Conchita. So I went off and did that instead. And just after, we were about 4 weeks into shooting on Extreme Prejudice in El Paso, Texas, just outside El Paso, Sunland, Texas. And we get a call that Rafaela got it going again. She wanted to know if I would come back. Wow. And I said, oh, it was like my stomach just went, I mean, her Gurney Halleck, I remember my grandfather saying that he was a character who could, him and Frank Herbert talked about creating the two knights that would look after the prince, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That Gurney was going to be, Duncan Idaho was the beauty and the flash and the face.
Yeah.
And Gurney was the paranoid kind of manic depressive who could, go on a rage, or he could also play the lute and make the stars cry. He was that diverse character. And I totally identified with him.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do it. And they went, and I heard, and here's a little bit of tidbit, I don't know if you know this, that Aldo Ray was hired to play Gurney Halleck. He had been sober, off drugs and alcohol, I heard, for about a year at that time, or 18 months. And he was hired to do Gurney Halleck. And he got on the plane in Los Angeles, arrived in Mexico City drunk. And they met him at the plane. And Rafaela, I think Rafaela, part of his deal was that as long as he was sober, he was fine and stuff. And she literally he never got out of the airport. They turned him around, put him back on a plane, sent him back to LA. And an actor who was hired to be one of the Siths, totally unknown at the time at the point, not unknown, but not unknown around the world, was a young actor named Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
who got hired to play a version of Duncan, Idaho, and Gurney Halleck rolled into one.
Yeah.
He was elevated from playing one of the Siths
Yeah.
to playing that role, and and the rest of the story is all in popcorn.
Mm. So that would have been your dream. That would have been what you would have done.
I'm way too old. I would probably play the Baron Harkonian now if I had chance. I can't wait to see Gilles Villeneuve.
Yeah.
It's the fellow Canadian,
Mm.
out of Montreal, Quebec. Very, very depth story. A lot like Cronenberg. I think Villeneuve and Cronenberg have a lot together. They have that sense. You almost feel like it's a visceral story when you come out of this.
Yeah.
You can feel it. You can feel it on you. Good or bad.
Yeah.
You can smell the perfume in the bedroom. You can feel the sheets. And you can also feel the cold hand of the killer when it runs its hand through your hair. Both of them have that ability. They're very good.
Yeah.
I've never worked with him, but I love his work. And so I'm looking forward to seeing this Dune.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And, yeah.
The talk is it's going to be the new Star Wars. I don't know if you can sell toys of
no
of the makers.
Not really.
Not really, but
no. It's an interesting idea if that's where we're going.
It's like, look what I bought you, son, for Christmas. Ooh, oh my God, it's a maker. It's and it has real spice coming out its ass. That the original book, my grandfather explained that was a metaphor for North America. And
oh wow, okay, yeah,
for the world is that the spice and the sand and the Fremen were Palestine. Spice is oil, the land of trees and water. Where Max von Sydow came from was North America. And if you look at all the different people that are fighting in the universe, again, it was a political metaphor.
Yeah.
Sci-fi has always been an opportunity to tell stories. They're all Westerns, for example. They're just Westerns. You put them in a format. If you want to make social comedy, you have to put it in a format that people feel comfortable considering.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
If you're going to bring them to the fire and have them sit down, you got to tell them a story that entertains, viscerally moves them, emotionally engages them, and hopefully educates them a little bit.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you take a look at the latest Star Wars or the latest Total Recall, with all its flash and bang and flag waving, it doesn't hold you.
No.
You squirm in your seats after 25 minutes.
No. I mean, it doesn't live up at all to the original, and the original still looks great, and it still tells that story and entertains. So,
but that's the difference. That's the difference between having a crafted storyteller at the helm who knows what they're doing and where they're going and never gets lost in the forest.
Yeah. And
a lot of money that's put in the wrong things.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. And I think they asked me to wrap up. Well, good morning. Yeah, good morning to you. And it's kind of good night.
It's midday. It's getting midday now. So
okay.
Thank you. I hope I gave you something.
Yes, you definitely did. No, thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Alex.
Yes, thank you.
Well,
and
Alex, thank you. Take care.
Yes, you too. And if you guys can send me the recording.